Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make this elegant flowers beaded Kumihimo bracelet, and this is what mine looks like here, obviously with the materials that I've chosen to use. So we have tiny little seed beads first of all in the braid and also on the back of it, and then to make the little flowers we're using 4mm rounds, and they're kind of just separated out throughout the braid like this, and I've just chosen this colour combination here. And this is then what mine looks like on. You can see you get the nice effect of the flowers all the way along, and it's also nice and fluid in the movement of the bracelet, so it's comfortable to wear as well. So if you want to learn how to make this bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. What I'm using for this here is a round Kumihimo disc because it's a round braid structure that we're making. And then the cord that I'm using is this white s-lon cord. I'm using the white colour because I think that's the most neutral against the beads that I'm using here in case any of the cord shows through. And as for the beads, I've got two different kinds here. So first of all, I have 11 no Miyuki seed beads, and this specific colour is galvanized blush. And then I'm also using these silver stardust metal spacer beads, and they're 4mm rounds, and these are the ones that are actually going to create the flowers. And obviously you can choose whichever colour combinations you want to. And then to finish off the ends of the braid, I'm using these Kumihimo ends here. They have little loops in them so we can then attach our findings to them. So the findings I'm using is a lotter claw clasp and extender chain, and I'm just using the jump rings there to attach it all together, but obviously you can use whatever kind of clasp that you prefer. Now what I'm also going to be using for this braid is actually the Kumihimo weight. So this specific one is about 45g weight. You can see it's got both a hook there and then the little crocodile mouth on the other end. I'm just going to be using that one. So just any form of weight like this, or you can even make up your own. Now I also put the material list along with any links that you might need down in the description box below, so feel free to check that out. But otherwise, let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. So then the lengths of cord we'll need is 4 lengths here of our s-lon of about 1 meter each. And then what I've done is I made sure all the ends are even, so I put them together. Then I want to fold them over in half, so put the ends together again, because we need to find the midpoint, and that is here. And I've just tied a regular knot where I've then attached a piece of scrap wire, so we now need to attach these to the disc. And I then took my lengths of cord here and I put the knot with that piece of wire down through the hole in the center of the disc, so the braid is going to be coming out of the back here. And then I distributed the rest of the cords around, kind of just looking at the dots for reference. I'm not using the numbers, I just put one length of cord on either side of each dot there, so I'll make sure I have pairs opposite each other, evenly distributed around the disc. And then we need to start braiding here. So what I'm going to do is take my top left cord and bring that down and put it into the left slot next to the pair on the bottom. Then I'm going to take my bottom right one and bring that up and stay on the right side of that top cord. Then I'm going to turn my disc for the next pair, so it's a quarter, and then repeat. So I take my top left cord and bring that down, and then I take my bottom right cord and bring that up. And then we turn again for the next pair, so a quarter again. And we basically just keep doing this until we have about 1 to 2 centimeters of braid, because we need a little section of braid with just the cord before we start adding in any beads. So now that I have that little length of braid coming out, you can see there on the back of the disc, then we need to add in our beads to all the lengths of cord. So this is then how I've added the beads to all my lengths of cord. Now what I have done here is I've taken a picture of this setup and I put that on my website along with the text description as well. So it might be easier to go there and have a look to make sure you set up the beads properly. But as you can see, we have a mix of the 4mm rounds and the 11/0 on all the lengths of cord. And it's just adding them in a certain way and certain amounts to make sure we get the pattern that we want. So this setup here is to accommodate for the way that I work with my braid. So that means, like in the beginning there, I start with my top left one, bring that down, and the bottom right one and bring that up. So if you start with either the top left one or the bottom right one, because they're the same as each other, you can set up the beads exactly like I have here. But if you start with the top right one or the bottom left one, again they're the same as each other, then you have to set up beads differently to achieve the same effect, because basically that's opposite than what I do. And what that is in a mirrored image to this. So imagine that you have a mirror in front of your disc and then you need to set up the beads in that mirror image. So that means that the top two cords there, obviously not the cords themselves, but just the beads, they would swap with each other. And then the bottom ones would also swap with each other. And then on the side here, the top one on either side, the beads on the cords will swap over the middle with each other. And then the bottom ones will also swap over the middle with each other. And again, it's just the positioning of the beads to make sure we get the same pattern. But otherwise we then need to continue braiding and start adding the beads into the braid. So what I have found works best for this braid is using a Kumihimo weight. So the one that I'm using here is about a 45 gram specific Kumihimo weight, but you can use something else if you don't have these. You can easily make up your own by having a bag with some coins or stones in it and just attaching that in some way. And I will then also recommend that you use either a new or not very used disc, because that weight is going to add obviously the weight in the middle that's going to pull the cord down more. So if it's a new disc, the notches there, the slots are nice and tight. Or if it's not very used, if you only used it for a thin cord like this, just to make sure that that extra weight doesn't just pull the cord all the way through. But then to get started with the braid here, we basically need to ease our way into the main pattern, because the main pattern is going to consist of using 3 seed beads at a time whenever we add in seed beads. But if we do that right from the beginning, then that can be quite tricky and they won't really want to stay where we want them to. So what I found works best is easing our way into it. So I'm just going to continue the same braid structure. So I'm taking my top left cord there, but now when I'm releasing the cord, I'm going to drop down 1 seed bead and let it drop all the way into the middle, and make sure that that seed bead goes underneath the cord that's coming out to the side. So just like that, and then bring the cord down. And I'm not touching the braid here in the middle. I find it works best by just letting the weight really do its job. And then I'm taking the bottom right cord and also dropping down 1 bead, and make sure it goes all the way into the middle and gets trapped underneath the cord going out to the side. Then turn your disc for the next pair. Again, we need to drop down 1 bead here, so I'm just going to let that slide down the cord while I'm releasing it from the slot, and then have it go all the way into the middle. And if it doesn't fall in by itself under that cord, just push it in with your finger, give it a little nudge, bring the cord down. And then the next one down here, the bottom right one, also needs 1 bead for now. So basically we're going to be doing a few movements here with just 1 bead until we then step it up. And then the next one also has 1 bead, and this is going to be the third pair, we could call it. So the pair that I'm working with now also has 1 bead, and this is the third one. So the top one there, and then the bottom one. Also drop down that single bead all the way into the middle and bring the cord up. Now turn your disc, and this is then where we need to step it up a notch. So instead of adding 1 bead at a time, I'm now going to still release the top left cord, but I'm actually going to step it up to 2. So just drop down 2 beads instead of just the 1. I have them here. And just keep an eye on the amount of beads that you're dropping, and also throughout the pattern, so we don't drop in the wrong amount. Make sure they both now get trapped underneath the cord going out to the side. And the bottom right one also needs 2 seed beads dropping down. They both get trapped there. Turn your disc for the next pair. And this pair also needs 2 beads on either cord. Drop them down into the middle, just like the other times. And we can start to see already now that there's more of a natural space there for the 2 seed beads, because that was created by the first ones that we dropped in. And just keep going. This one also needs the 2. So we're basically doing the same on opposite sides of the same pair. Like that. Assuming it's the same kind of beads in that pair. So this is the third round now, where we're also going to add in, or the third pair rather, also going to add in 2 seed beads on the top one, and then also 2 seed beads on the bottom one. So we had 3 pairs with 1, and now we have 3 pairs with 2. So now it's time to step it up again. So that means obviously the next one would be 3. So I'm just going to drop down 3 seed beads for this cord here. Again, that's going to then step it up and just create that little bit more spacing. Again, this one can be kind of the trickiest one, because we're going from 2 to 3, and what you'll probably find is out of those 3 seed beads that I just added in, the top one will kind of want to tend to pop out over the cord that's going out to the side instead of getting stuck under it. So what you want to make sure to do is that it's going to stay underneath there while bringing the cord down. And you want to keep an eye on it throughout to make sure it doesn't pop out while we're making other movements in the braid. And the bottom one here also gets 3. Make sure they get trapped underneath, and then turn your disc again. The top left one, we add 3 seed beads again. And now we do have better spacing already because the first pair that we added with 3, that creates now the spacing for the rest of them really. Add in 3 on the bottom one as well. Make sure they go all the way underneath and they all go under. And then bring the cord up. Now turn your disc for the next pair. And on the top left one here, the next few beads we have are still seed beads, so that means we need to add in 3 seed beads. That's what we need to count on now. The rest of the main part of the pattern is 3 seed beads whenever we're adding in the seed beads. So drop them down, bring the cord over, and then on the bottom one here we actually have a very first 4mm round. So I'm just going to add in one of them because that's basically in place of the 3 seed beads, about the same spacing, and then bring that up and over. And then now we basically just continue like this. So the next one here, the top left one, is another 4mm round. Bring that down, that's going to sit right next to the other one. And on the back here, we then have seed beads again, which means we're just going to add 3 of them. So like that. And then turn your disc. The next one here, we're basically now starting on the first little flower, you could call it. That's also 4mm round. And we're starting to create that. So just keep adding in your beads. Whenever you run into a 4mm round, you just add in that single one. Whenever you run into the seed beads, you will now want to make sure to add in 3 of them at a time until we obviously get to the end as well. So now just reach the point in the braid there just after the first flower. So just to show you what it looks like, we can start to see we get that impression of the flower there with the 4mm rounds. So now we're going to move on to only using the seed beads until we then reach the next flower. So I just want to show you again how it looks up close. So the next one that I've reached here is obviously seed beads, and it's my top left cord, so I'm releasing that and dropping down those 3 seed beads there. And as you can maybe already tell, they just kind of slide in, and the spacing is much better now because we also have the 4mm rounds in there, which also really helps. So just slot them in, make sure they stay underneath the cord, because like I mentioned, be careful that you don't have one of the seed beads. I can just try and show you on this, that basically wants to pop out over the cord and sit there, because then technically that bead will end up on the inside of the braid rather than on the outside, obviously where we want the pattern to be. So for now we're just adding in the seed beads here, again 3 at a time, and just remember that throughout until we then reach the next flower again, where we're going to add in the 4mm rounds as well, which is only 1 at a time. But you just keep adding your beads in like this, like I said, until you get to the end after the last flower. So now reach the other end here, and I've gotten to the point where in this pair, when I'm going to be adding in the beads, the top one here, I've got my 3 seed beads, let them drop down the exact same way, and bring the cord down. And then in the other one here, I have my very last 4mm round, and then just let that drop down. So that's the last one in that last flower. So now what we need to do is start finishing this end off. And like I said, it's the exact same way as we started out, but kind of just in reverse. So then I turn to the next pair, and I'm going to add in 3 seed beads again. Let them drop all the way down. Bring the cord down. And then this one here is also 3. Like I said, it's always the same on the opposite cords in the same pair, except obviously with that 4mm round. And then turn your disc for the next one. This is also then 3 that we need to add in. So I'm dropping down the 3 seed beads. Make sure they get caught underneath there. And the opposite one here also has 3 seed beads. Just get them all the way down the cord. And then bring that up, and then we turn. And now what we need to do is start adding in 2. So basically step down 1. So I'm dropping down 2 seed beads on this one instead. Bring that down, and on the opposite one, I also add in 2 seed beads. So this is where we're starting to graduate downwards again now, towards the end. So that's the first one. The first pair with 2. The next one also has 2. Same with the opposite one. Just bring up 2 seed beads and let them run all the way down the cord. That was the second one. And this next one here is the third one. Also has 2. And this is going to be the last one with 2. Same on the opposite one. Because then we'll need to step it down again. Like that. Go to the next pair. So now we have 3 rounds with 2 seed beads. Or 3 pairs rather. And then I drop down a single one now. Same with the opposite. And basically we just want to use the rest of the beads on the cords in singles. And that also then amounts to 3 pairs. So that was 1. The next one here also is a single bead. And the opposite one. And that was in 2 pairs. Turn your disc for the next one, which is also a single bead. And the opposite one, and these are also the very last beads that we have left. And bring that up. So now we finished off the end in the same way, so it graduates down nicely and it just fits in better with the beads there. So now what we need to do is finish the end off in the same way that we started out. So we need to make that little end with just the cord. So all we do is continue the technique, but just with the cord. And then the cord is naturally going to singe in there, and make sure all those beads are staying underneath the cords that are going out to the sides, just like throughout. And we need about the same length as we have right in the beginning. So now I've braided that little end there, then what I just want to do is secure the end with the cords in place so we can then take them off the disc. So I'm just going to go to the pair that I was just used next, not the one that I just used, and then I'm going to take cords that are diagonally opposite each other, release them from the slots, and then just bring them over the middle and tie a knot with each other, and then tighten that all the way down right at the end of the braid. Then I'm going to take the other cords from the same pair and do the same, so just tie a regular knot there, and then that will get tightened right on top of the previous knot, like that. Then we just need to use the other ones as well. So go to the next pair and take cords diagonally opposite each other, make your knot, and tighten that on top of the previous one. So we now basically have 3 knots on top of each other. And the last ones, I'm going to also just make a knot here, but because these are the last cords, I like to just do 2 knots, because one can more easily come undone, and I want to make sure it's not going to come undone while we work on it to finish off the ends. So like that. Then we can just remove the disc, and then we have our braid. And this is then what the braid looks like. So you can see here on the front we have these little flower shapes, and on the back we just have the seed beads. So this also creates quite a nice and flat back to it, so it's going to be nice and comfortable to wear. But then what I just want to mention as well is the length of the beaded part of the braid is about 6 3/4 of an inch. So you can obviously use it as it is. So if you want to make it shorter or longer, you can adjust the pattern of that. So if you want to make it shorter, you could always just maybe not add in that last flower. So instead of having 8 flowers, you would just have the 7. And obviously longer, you would maybe add in another flower. So that's what it looks like. So all that's left to do now is finish off the ends. So I already have the tutorial where I show how to do that using the Kumihimo ends. So please feel free to check that out. I'm going to put a link to it down in the description box below if you need to look at that. But otherwise finish it off and then you'll have your finished bracelet. So I now finished off both ends and attached my clasp, and then this is what it looks like. So you can see we have the bracelet all the way around. So we have these little flowers created by the 4mm rounds and then separated out by the tiny little seed beads. And obviously you can combine whatever colours you want to give it a very different look. And also it's quite a fluid bracelet. so it's going to be comfortable to wear as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial here. I have loads of other Kumihimo tutorials on my channel, so feel free to check that out, and loads of playlists as well. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.